In this lecture, we'll be creating query parameters to go with our APIs. And now query parameters are a set of key value pairs that go after question marks within an API URL, which help add specific variables to API requests that can be used within the function that the API is calling. To get an idea of how query parameters work, let's create one. Now, this read all books. Now, if we remember this read all books API, if we open up our browser and we say try it out, it returns all 5 books that we currently have in our books dictionary. But let's add some query parameters to this read all books function. I'm going to create a parameter called skip book. So when we return all the books, we won't include that book. And I'm going to make it have a default value of book 3. So let's start by creating the variable in the parameter of skip underscore book, which is of type string, which is equal to quotation marks of book underscore 3. And now when we return the books, we want to create a new variable called new books, which is equal to books.copy, and then return the new books after deleting that skip book. So let's go ahead and create a new variable called new books, which is equal to books.copy. And now let's delete the new books and at the location of skip book, which is book underscore 3, and then now let's return new books. If we save our new function and we open up the browser once more and we refresh and call this again, we can see that the skip book is starting at book 3. If we say execute, we can see that book 3 is completely gone. Now, an issue that we see here is when we come back up and just say skip book and we have nothing added to the query, our call will automatically remove book 3. So as we can see, that skip book is going to be equal to book 3. If we come back up here and change it to book 4 and we execute, we can see that now book 4 is gone as it replaces book 3. However, what if we don't want a default value? Well, we can make this a non-default value by backing out and just removing the end value of skip book. If we save this now, and we go back to our browser, and we refresh, and we call this, we can see that skip book is now required. So now we must pass in a book that's going to be removed. So when we type in book 1, we can see that book 1 is gone. If we type in book 2, we can see book 2 is gone. So one of the most powerful parts of the query parameter is that we can make it optional. So the way we can make it optional is by typing out in front of the type description the optional command and then wrapping the string within brackets. We can now import this optional call using the typing.optional, which will automatically import optional from typing. So the first thing we can do now is check to see if skip book has a value. So we can say if skip book, if the skip book does have a value, then we want to do this function that's inside. If skip book is false and has no values, then let's just return the normal books. And one more thing we need to do up in this parameter is make it equal to none if nothing is passed in. When you make it equal to none, FastAPI knows automatically that this is going to be an optional call. However, FastAPI still does all the normal data parsing and validation that path parameters would normally have. Let's now go back up to here. Let's refresh the screen. And we can now see that skip book is no longer required. If we don't type anything in and we execute the call, we're going to get all 5 books. However, if we type in book 2, we're going to get book 2 removed from the list. This is an example of how query parameters work. And we can see that query parameters are happening after the question mark. They're not being a path parameter that comes right after some type of API call, but they get separated after a question mark. This wraps up the lecture on query parameters, and I will see you in the next video. Today's lecture, we're going to learn about the post request method. And post is usually used to send a request body to the server for the server to do some kind of data manipulation and then send a response body back. And we're going to be dealing with request bodies using post in the next section. In this section, we're still going to be using app.post, but we're going to be creating a new book and a new author by using query parameters instead of using the request body. So let's start by scrolling to the bottom and creating a new function called createBook as an asynchronous call. So let's start by typing in async def createBook, and then as the parameter, we're going to say book underscore title and book underscore author. And above this definition, let's create the app.post. And at the end of the app.post, we want to make sure it's an empty API string URL. So let's do @app_decorator.post and then an empty string inside. And now inside the function, we want to say current book ID is equal to 0 because now we're trying to find out how many books there are and for us to create an ID with a book at the very end of the book's dictionary list. So let's currently create a new ID called current book ID, which is equal to 0. Under this, we want to find the lengths of books and make sure that it's greater than 0. We now want to loop through each book in books and find out what number is at the end of books underscore 1 or books underscore 2. We're trying to find out what number it is so we can add one to the largest number within the books. So for book in books, x equals int book.split at the underscore -1 to find the last number or the last character. And I'm going to wrap this in an integer. And now if x is greater than current book ID, then we want to make sure current book ID is then equal to x. And then outside of all this, we just want to say books, book current book ID plus 1 is equal to the book title and book author we pass in. So we want to create a new value for the dictionary of books and then add it into the books dictionary. And then finally return books with the new current book ID plus 1. So that's going to be the response at the end. If we go back to our browser and we open up Swagger and we refresh the screen, we now see a new post call using createBook. We can see that book title and book author are both query variables that are both required. If we say try it out, we can add in a new book. So I'm going to say title 6 and I'm going to say author 6. If I execute this, we can see that we get title 6 and author 6 response because that's what we wanted to do, respond the new book that we created. But if we close this create book and we say read all books and we pass nothing in as the query for skip book and we execute, we're going to see that we now get 6 books as the response. Now remember, this book 6 is not getting saved in a database or anything, so it's only going to be rendering book 6 as long as we don't turn off the server. If we turn off this server and we rerun Unicorn, book 6 is going to go away because it's going to go right back up to this books list of book 1 through 5. In a later section of this course, we do create a database, we do create users, but we're not quite there yet, so this is all just temporary for now. This wraps up how to use post and create a variable or create a new item using query parameters, and I will see you in the next video. In this lecture, we'll be creating the update book method and creating an API that uses the put request method, which is how you enhance or update a specific item using APIs. So I'm going to scroll down underneath the app.post, and I will be creating an app.put method that as the parameter, I'm going to say book name and be passing in the book name, which is the key or the ID on how to find a specific book within the books. And then we're going to pass in two more query parameters called book title and book author. Again, we are not dealing with request bodies quite yet. We're going to be doing that in the next section. But right now we're just going to be using query parameters and IDs within the path parameter to enhance a book using the put request method. So I'm going to start by creating a new function by saying async def update book. And as a parameter, I'm going to say book name, which is going to be a string. And now I'm going to add in two query parameters called book title and book author, which are both also going to be strings. And then, of course, right above this update book function, I'm going to create the @app decorator .put with the book name as the path parameter. So let's start by saying @app.put, and inside the put, we're going to add book name as a path parameter to get passed in. And remember, book title and book author are going to be query parameters, so they're not part of the API URL. And now we can see that we have the book name within the put request method as a path parameter, which is going to align up with this book name as a path parameter. And then we're going to have two required query parameters called book title and book author, which we're going to use to create a new book. So the first thing we can do is create a new variable called book information, which is equal to a new dictionary, which is going to have title be book title and author be equal to book author. Now books at that book name will equal the new book information, which is going to be the dictionary of title and author. And then we just want to simply return the new book information back to the user when this put is requested. If we save this application now and we reopen up our Swagger UI documents and refresh, we can see that we now have a new request method of put, which needs a /book name path parameter, and it's going to be called update book. Inside here, we can see that we have three required variables: book name as the path parameter, and book title and book author, which are both query parameters. So to first test, let's say read all books. And I'm just going to try it out and read all the books, where we can see book 3's title is title 3 and author is author 3. Let's enhance book 3 down here and say we want to call book 3. We want the new title to be Computer Science Pro. By coding with Roby. And now when we execute this, we can see that the curl request is going to be /book3 as a path parameter, question mark, which is going to start the query parameters of book title, which is equal to Computer Science Pro, and author, which is equal to coding with Roby. We also get a status code of 200 with the title Computer Science Pro and the author coding with Roby. If we scroll back up to this get command and we re-execute this call, we can now see that book 3's title is Computer Science Pro and author is coding with Roby. So we successfully implemented a put request with a path parameter and two query parameters that were able to update and enhance book 3's title and author. Again, this is not using a database, so if we turned off the server and restarted the server, it's going to go right back to the original books dictionary, where it's just going to say title 3 and author 3. But for now, this wraps up the put request, and I will see you in the next video. In this lecture, we're going to be talking about the delete request method through an API on how we can call a delete functionality. To do this, we're going to be using @app decorator with the delete functionality attached. And inside the API URL, we're going to be passing in a book name. We'll also be creating a function called async delete book, which is going to take in that book name and delete that book name from the dictionary of books. So let's jump in and do this. We're going to start by creating a new function called async def delete book with a book name as a parameter. Inside this function, we want to delete the book based on this book name. And then finally, return just a status of saying this book at the specific ID that was sent in has been deleted. And then at the very top, we need to use the app decorator to create the delete functionality within the request method. All right, so we have a path parameter of app.delete with book underscore name as the path parameter, which is going to line up with the parameter of the method delete book. We're going to say delete the book's item at the book name where the IDs match, and then return just a statement or a string saying that book name was deleted. So let's fire up our browser and go to our Swagger UI docs. I'm going to refresh the page where we can say try it out and execute. We have our 5 books, book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4, and book 5. And if we scroll all the way down to delete, we can say that book name as a path variable is required. We can say try it out. I'm going to type in book underscore 2. Click execute. And we can see that our delete functionality is just doing a /booked underscore 2, where we're getting a response of book underscore 2. So I need to add a space there. But if we scroll back up to the top and we say execute, we can see that book 2 is now gone. Let's fix that little typo where instead of that underscore right here, we just want to say space. And let's refresh and go back in here. And let's recall and execute this where we're going to get that book back because the server reloaded by us typing in the -- reload. So let's scroll back down to our delete, say execute book 2 deletion again, and we can see that book 2 was now deleted. And if we scroll back up here and we say execute this get call, book 2 is missing once again. This wraps up how we can use delete as a request method within FastAPI, and I will see you in the next video.